Hi, everybody. Good morning. Thanks for coming. I know there are a lot of other places that you could be, lots of talks today. I'm happy that you're here, though, with us today. And listen, what I want to focus your morning on is how to help you take control of your own destiny. So throughout my career in television and e-commerce, you could say I've walked the line between two very different worlds. So the creative side and the corporate side. It's not always easy, but I've helped bring together the needs of artists and businesses. I understand what creative people need to build and run successful businesses. And today, I want to share 5 steps for turning your successful game into a successful business. And actually, I do believe that Xsolla can make those 5 steps much easier for you. So I think it makes sense to start with, why did I get into the game industry? So I've always been motivated by helping people make art, and art that captures their audience's imaginations. In television, I've seen the success done. I've seen this done to great success over and over again, but with shows like Stranger Things or Game of Thrones in particular. These shows foster an intense connection between fans and the creative work. They create cultural conversations that, of course, last for weeks at a time, months at a time, and even years at a time. But I believe games create the same connection, but with so much more passion and reach. And what's fascinating about games is how they engender really powerful player communities. So games have the reach of social media platforms like Facebook or Twitter, but they encourage much, much deeper emotional bonds. I know that each one of you understands this connection, or you wouldn't be making games. Growing your project is about managing that relationship between your creative work and the community you're trying to build for your game. That's what's really inspiring to me. How can I help you break through and make a connection to the audience you've always dreamt about? Sorry, going too fast. So last year, I went on a tour of different game studios throughout Europe. And in my current role, I'm talking to game studios all of the time. Do you know what the most important difference between the successful game studios and the ones that are struggling? Successful game studios thought about themselves as a business. When I say that, game developers often scrunch up their nose and say, I'm not running a business. I'm making something beautiful. I'm making art. And you know what? I totally agree with you. Yes, you're making something special. Yes, you're making art. You're here because what you're doing is creatively fulfilling. And why is making games creatively fulfilling? Because all the hard work you're putting into this game, into this project, will result in a game, and a game that people will play, and hopefully lots and lots of people will play. You're not making a game so that no one will play with it. You want your game to be seen, lots of people hearing about your game, downloading your game, and talking about your game. And guys, that's a business. Minecraft was an indie and is now a business. Phoenix Point, who we'll talk about a little bit later, is an indie that's now a business. Firewatch was an indie that became a business, that became part of a much bigger business that used to be an indie. That's where I can help. When I think about the skills I've developed from all of my years in television and e-commerce, I had this realization. I want to help game studios be successful businesses. Why? Because many independent developers lack the proper tools, time, and resources. And they want to focus on making more in-game content or fund a sequel. You guys, you want to be able to go from just one successful video game project to many. So to help them get there, I want to take what I've learned from building successful TV networks and pass that knowledge on to independent creators. I want to help the small be mighty. But of course, that's much easier said than done. The world of games is challenging. There are high barriers to success. It's often messy and expensive and risky. And you can put your heart into something and it can crash to the ground, leaving you with debt and broken relationships. And it doesn't matter whether you're big or small, the risks are always there. We've seen so many studios close over the past year, unfortunately. You could be as big as Activision Blizzard or as small as just a couple of people grinding away on a student project. Unfortunately, failure is a reality. While there's some well-known indie success stories, they're becoming fewer and farther between. The landscape has become much more crowded. To start, there are a lot more places to sell your game. There's Steam, there's Cartridge, there's Epic Game Store, there's Discord, Wii Game, the list goes on and on. But more relevant to you is the number of games being released continues to rise. Let's use Steam as an example. Over the past 10 years, the number of games released on Steam has risen exponentially. Before Steam Greenlight, Steam published 5 games a week on average. After Greenlight, the floodgates were opened. That number rose to 70 games a week. Now, with Steam Direct in 2018, 180 games are released per week. As a result, it has become increasingly difficult for indie games to rise above the noise. In 2018, the average game on Steam, after removing the shovelware, sold 2,000 copies and made $30,000. $30,000 a year is better than nothing, right? You're living on ramen maybe, but you're surviving. But when you consider that most games take several years to create, this is indeed the definition of developing on a shoestring budget. But then, to keep surviving, you take more and more risks. You can't keep up. You try to squeeze more and more cash out of your fans, and so many indie developers fail every single year. You do need to think about a business strategy. There's that word again, because many indie games, unfortunately, don't succeed. So the elephant in the room this week and always is, why do indie game developers fail? And you know, that's a complicated question. It's usually easiest to say that the game wasn't really good, no one played it, or it received a ton of bad reviews. But from my experience, the biggest reason I've seen creative products fail is a lack of marketing and a lack of business strategy. I think Rob Fahey of GameIndustry.biz summed it up really well. He wrote, "A surprising number of talented developers are guilty of sending their indie titles out to die with absolutely no marketing spending or strategy to back them up. They don't have a plan about how their game will earn revenue. Twitter maybe is the entirety of their marketing campaign. They do little to build and maintain a relationship with their most valuable customers, fans. There's rampant survivorship bias. People point to a certain indie game that didn't market but found success and learned, unfortunately, the wrong lesson. And I know you know these developers. Developers spend years developing their game, but they put very little effort into marketing and strategy. Instead, they rely on hope that their game will find an audience. Now, when I say marketing, I see people roll their eyes, but good businesses have great marketing plans. And ultimately, you are a business. I believe that marketing is part of the artistry. It is part of the design. It's part of the entire experience of your game. People think that products and marketing and brands and products are two different things, but it's one and the same. Your community, your marketing, your network, it's ultimately your product. It's not just marketing, it's not just your product, it's all of it. It's the experience which makes up your product. Now, I understand business and marketing isn't your forte. You're artists, after all, and your focus is on creating a game. You want to create the art. So at Xsolla, our goal is to change the narrative of independent game development. We want to see starving artists become successful startups. Like you, we started small. It's in our roots and our DNA. But in the past 14 years, we've helped some of the biggest names in the industry to grow their businesses, including PUBG, World of Tanks, and Fortnite. We've also worked with ecosystem companies like Valve, Twitch, and ESL. When game makers come to us looking for ways to make their game more successful, we always suggest they self-publish. What I mean by self-publishing is that you're owning your own destiny. You're owning your audience. You're not dependent on storefronts. You know who your audience is and how to reach them. And what's more indie than that? The advantage of self-publishing is that you make more money. Steam is obviously huge, but the overall PC market is almost 5 times the size. If you self-publish, you'll be able to better understand your audience through data. And this gives you more options for growing your business so that you can do more of what you love. However, the feedback we've gotten over and over again is that self-publishing is too difficult. There are only so many hours in a day, and games take a long time to develop. Self-publishing takes valuable time away from development, and there are great options out there, like Steam and other platforms that plenty of games do fine in. We've noticed that successful companies have sophisticated business plans in place, but they also have tools and resources that smaller companies don't. So lately, we've been thinking, wouldn't it be great if independent studios had access to the same tools and services that the big publishers have? What if these sophisticated marketing tools that the big kids had were available for everyone? We thought there was an opportunity for us to lend a hand. So back in June, we launched the Xsolla Suite, designed for the needs of both small to mid-sized developers. It's the business engine for the video game industry. Again, I'm going to say business because I know you all want to be making games for the rest of your lives. We do things that you don't have to, the things that can be the difference between success and failure. Building your branding, your online presence, setting up and managing your game economy, working with influencers, managing payments. It's all the nitty-gritty stuff that takes you away from creating the best game possible. At Xsolla, we are committed to changing your story by providing the tools and services that give you the confidence to build the successful life that you want. We truly believe that if everyone has equal access, everyone here wins. To that end, we've developed this Xsolla Suite, which is a turnkey solution for the business needs, again, of small to mid-sized developers. These tools, mind you, have been built around proven business strategies. Don't let months and years of your hard work go to waste by releasing a game with no marketing and no business strategy. So now, this is why you came. I'd like to share 5 steps for turning your game studio into a successful business. It's a combination of what I've been talking about. And number 1 is building your brand so that you can have a successful franchise, a long-lasting franchise. This is critically important. Developers need to look beyond performance-based advertising. Making a game is an emotional experience, and that emotional experience needs to translate to an emotional connection with your players. In addition, branding becomes more important as competition rises And there's no consumer market more competitive than the video games. As I saw in the television industry, brands create addiction. They're able to break through a very crowded and noisy marketplace. One easy place to launch your brand is your website. And one thing I've noticed is that many studios do not have a dedicated website for their game. Some don't clearly communicate their product identities, and if they do have a website or social media channels, it's not communicated clearly. Maybe they don't have anything except their crowdfunding page or a forum post announcing their project. The first thing you need to be thinking about is what kind of studio you want to be. Think about your favorite game studio. Maybe it's Rockstar, maybe it's Blizzard, maybe it's Riot. The thing these companies all have in common is that they have a clear, identifiable brand. When a new game or a new trailer is coming out from one of these companies, you know exactly what to expect. Rockstar is about being subversive. Blizzard is about online game design. Riot is all about community. Many small studios think it's too late to do that, but it's not. There are lots of small, successful studios that have recognizable brands. Think about Klee, think about Supergiant, think about Tiny Build. You know what you're getting when you download their games. In games, building a brand can be hard to do if you turn everything over to where your game is purchased. I'll talk on this more, but we can help you have a fully consistent experience from your player's first login to launching your title. Okay, so now that you've figured out who you want to be when you grow up, how do you put that into action? Even if you're starting on your first project, your second step should be to go ahead and begin cultivating an audience. Without an audience, you know you have nothing. Am I off the slide? Yes. Okay. Maybe you've just finished your first crowdfunding project and are now doing pre-sales. So again, step 2, grow your online presence. You can do this through a well-designed website, which is one thing I've noticed many new game studios don't have. Maybe they have a social handle, perhaps it's a link to a crowdfunding page, maybe it's just an announcement post on Reddit. A good website will help you cultivate your audience by collecting a list of your players. Simple, right? Only it's not so simple. Many indie developers don't have access to any information about their players. When you publish your game through a digital distribution channel, you have no idea who is buying your game. But when you build your website with Site Builder, which is on the slide now, and your players log in, and using our login tool, you can gain something essential: a list of emails and social identifiers. This is critical in growing your business. Now you have more than the players, you have a following. This way, when people Google your game, they're directed to your website instead of a publisher's or an article about your game. The advantage is that you have full control over your brand messaging, and visitors won't be distracted by links to other games. Our Site Builder tool allows anyone to build and customize their landing page. The pages themselves are performance optimized for selling games, as well as giving a free download. Our layouts place the game trailer front and center, and the options for buying the game are in plain view. Earthfall's landing page is an excellent example of what you can do with our tools. The layout is sleek, the game trailer starts playing straight away, and the design is easy to navigate. Once you have a sophisticated landing page, you can start to do many things to grow your studio. The third step is to start selling stuff to your fans. Once you have a list of your audience's email addresses, you can do some basic advertising. You could send them an email saying, hey, I have a new game coming out. maybe you'd like it. One way these tools work together is by giving you more revenue options and more ways to engage with your fans. If you build your website with Site Builder and sell your game with our store tool, you'll make more money. The reason is you circumvent the high fees associated with selling through digital distribution platforms. When you self-publish through us, we charge you a very reasonable rate of 5%, and we do not compete with our platform partners who sell directly to players. We only work for you. You are our number one concern and priority. You come first. This doesn't mean that you should stop selling your game on other platforms. As I said earlier, there are lots of them. And of course, you want your game to have maximum visibility. We always say that Xsolla is complementary to other platforms. But having your own store allows you to make additional profit, and it will enable you to start fleshing out your business. When selling through a digital distribution platform, your options for making money are limited. But when you self-publish, you can make money any way you see fit. Okay, let me explain through an example. Phoenix Point is a game that has this really well figured out. After raising $700,000 in initial backing through crowdfunding, the team set up a landing page with Xsolla and continued their pre-launch campaign. They made an additional $2 million. Using our store utility, they started selling Founders Pack pre-orders after crowdfunding was over. The game had lots of momentum, and they didn't want to kill it. They wanted to keep raising money in the moments leading up to the launch. This is an option digital distribution does not allow. At last count, they were bringing in $100,000 a month in revenue. And you know what? It's more than just money. These resources help Phoenix Point do what they love. So likewise, our launcher tool lets you connect directly to players through the game. You can sell new content or put content on sale, and everyone gets the message. And because our tools are integrated, the store is one click away. Another nice thing you can do with email and data is run analytics. And of course, we put analytic tools right at your fingertips. Demographic information, of course, as you know, is beneficial for reaching new people. But when you put a game for sale on digital distribution, on a digital distribution platform, the data belongs to the platforms. And oftentimes, they don't share that valuable information with you. Your players become the platform's customers. Even though the platform is ostensibly the middleman, they gain all your demographic data. This is something I watched happen already in the entertainment industry. Cable channels and movie studios made the same mistakes. About 8 or 10 years ago, when streaming started getting really big, many networks placed their content on services like Netflix and Hulu. The networks lost touch with their viewership. The streaming platforms got all of their data and, in essence, owned their audiences. As a result, the networks didn't know their audience anymore. Their ratings fell, and it hurt their bottom line. Meanwhile, the Netflixes of the world were analyzing this data and cranking out hit shows driven by user data and created an amazing personalized experience. Now, the networks are pulling their content from Netflix and launching their own streaming services, but at this point, it's an uphill climb. So game studios were in the same boat, but are starting to wake up to this reality. For instance, look at Epic. They launched their store to sell games like Paragon, and then Fortnite, and now others. It's in Epic's best interest, of course, to know who their players are. They can have a direct relationship and converse with their players in a way they couldn't before. If there's one thing I've learned from television, it is this. Knowing your audience is essential. So up until now, we've talked about how to use your own network, and now you need new ways to reach people outside of your network. So in the television world, we would lean heavily on the role of celebrity in drawing attention to new shows. And the world of games is no different. But often, when I worked with celebrities, it could be really difficult to track how successful a particular campaign with the star of the show truly was. If you want to work with influencers or streamers, you're going to have the same problem. The fourth step is working with partners who can help sell your game efficiently and effectively. Xsolla Partner Network allows you to not only identify appropriate influencers interested in your genre, but also allows you to track their performance. And thanks to a really great new partnership with Keymailer, Xsolla Partner Network allows you to team up with over 650,000 influencers who have a crazy aggregated reach of 1.25 billion viewers. And one last thing from my experience in TV that will help you with step number 5 is, when running 2 television networks in Latin America, I had to learn very quickly that what was going to work for Mexico wasn't going to work for Argentina. Every market has nuances that you have to keep in mind when working to connect and engage to build long-term relationships with your players, with your fans. Nowhere is that more important than understanding how your fans want to pay for their games and goods in different countries. You might be in the US, but your audience is everywhere. At Xsolla, we've had some great success helping smaller studios adjust their needs to global demand. Your last step is looking at a global payment solution. In 2015, Woo's World came to us with a catalog of over 25 million avatars. They needed to offer alternative payment options on top of their existing PayPal and credit card offerings. That's a big collection that we were happy to accommodate. Additionally, they wanted to control their fraud. With PayStation, we simultaneously integrated over 700 payment systems, with fraud rules and filters created precisely to the trends displayed by their users. Since then, we have decreased their fraud rate by 17%. Decca Games needed alternative payments for their growing publisher. We decreased their fraud rate by 15 to 20% and have been steadily increasing their profits by offering campaigns and promotions. Payments are where we started. It's the nucleus of what we do. So we can help you get that last mile incredibly right. So you might be thinking, do I need to do all these things all at once? Do I need to do them in this order? That's the beauty and flexibility of our ecosystem. No matter where you are in your journey, you can always easily drop in, and you can use any tools and services. It's never too late, and it's never too early. So those are my tips for you to be thinking about how you can take your game to the next level. But I hope you're beginning to see all these tools let you do your own marketing while we can be an extension of your team. This is the point in the presentation that I'd like to open it up for questions, and I'd like to bring David back up because he can help me share some good insights.
Yes.
So any questions out there based on what I just talked about, the 5 steps about Xsolla, anything that's particularly affecting you and impacting you?
Just out of curiosity, how many people have a game idea or are actually in development to ship a product? Looks like, wow, so it's a lot of people in the group. So for me, I guess the question is, just to kick things off so that the people can participate a little bit more, I was recently talking with people like that in the crowd that are either have an idea or getting ready to ship a game. And the CEO of the studio, a woman, asked me, hey, all I can do is focus on building my game. How do I actually start working on building a brand? So if you were to give them a recommendation on just the top line best practices beyond what's been shared today, what should they be thinking about?
Yeah, I think that it's a little bit of what I said earlier, but I'll get into a little bit more detail. I think that when you're thinking about a brand or a franchise, you have to be really clear again about, who you want to be, what your identity is. But it's not just about, the color of your logo
Right.
or, the look and feel. It's about, what is your value proposition?
Right.
What exactly are the features and benefits? What's in it for the player? And
As
also,
far as reach and frequency, like the other thing she says, I don't have time to communicate.
yeah, you have to be super consistent.
Got
And
it.
if you want to build a franchise, you really have to think about, the entire experience, and you need to be everywhere.
Yep.
And again, it has to be consistent, and you have to be very clear about who you want to be and how you want to talk to your players.
Awesome.
Any other questions out there?
Please.
So, what sort of SDKs and add-ins do we put it in the client, or is it a website-only solution?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So you can go up to Xsolla.com under the developer section, and all of the APIs and the integration process and steps are listed there. A lot of it's super quick, some of it's a little bit more complex, but you could integrate our pay station and start taking payments in mere hours working with an integration manager. So a lot of the code is optimized for fast integration into your platform. Super well documented. Yeah, sure, please, thank you.
So I also have produced films and web series in the past. So your platform kind of reminds me of Vimeo relative to that community, where you can have a lot of these tools relative to movies and sell your own stuff. One of the questions that I have based on that similarity is, how do you generate traffic? Because when I sell stuff on Amazon, there's a lot of built-in people that are going to find it, but on Vimeo I have a really hard time getting anybody to find that on their own.
Right, so I think that's where you have to come up with a really strong marketing strategy and a digital, and really think through where your audience is. You have to be super targeted, and you have to be really clear about your messaging. That's why I think that knowing your audience and where to find them is going to be critical to get
I'd
them
add
there.
to that a little bit, just also saying that a lot of times, so I work, not only do I work on the product side, I also work on the funding side, and I work a lot with, so Xsolla Funding is an initiative where we try to provide capital to developers. And I would say the number one problem that I see a lot of times is that developers don't have a broad publishing strategy that's just beyond English. And so you can actually double your revenue by just thinking about those top countries that you want to publish in. Yeah. And because of the internet, you can move and have a broader footprint a lot faster than it was like back in the 90s where you had to print CDs and stuff. So I really think about your publishing strategy that's just beyond the US to help you with that web traffic, to help you with that conversion into players of your game.
But you also have to think about your target
for sure.
across the board,
Yeah.
whether it's the US or globally, and really understand where they are and what's going to be relevant to them.
Yeah.
And then if people, is there like a searchable database through Xsolla, like where people can see who is using this, or it's got to be through like a search engine? Do you know what I mean?
So we have a lot of analytics that we do share with you, whether it's through Partner Network, whether it's through our payments tool. We're able to give you a sense of who's coming and what they're doing.
The other thing to add is that all of our data is extendable or extensible to third-party analytic tools. So like if you wanted to have super robust reporting for like the country of origin where people are coming from, you could use Adobe to extend the analytics that we already provide. So we provide you with all your data and analytics, and then you can bring it into other tools in order to interpret that data.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. It's really hard to see. The
Yeah.
lights are really harsh. Where?
Right here.
Okay.
Okay, all right. You can see me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So, what tips do you have for a studio to develop a brand for itself if they're only working on their first game and don't have plans for what their second or future games are?
It's a brandy one for you.
Say the question.
So his question
again.
is really about how do they build a brand if they only have a single release and they're going to move on? So are you in a work for hire situation, or is your product strategy to have a single release and then move on to a new idea?
We're just a brand spanking new studio.
Oh, there you go.
I think you have to start with really thinking through what your marketing and long-term strategy
Yeah.
is. And I think that you have to think about, not only where you want to begin is where you want to end.
Yeah.
And you have to think about who you want to be for your players. And you have to start with a really good website. You
Yeah.
have to be able to really communicate again the features and the so what for your players within that website.
So I'll also add on to that, because your situation is tough when you just have a single product release, by saying start earlier.
Yeah.
And start earlier in finding and talking to your fans, because you'll be really surprised and impressed how there'll be an echo chamber for talking and encouraging other fans. And then I think for you that the Xsolla Partner Network product is prime example of a tool that'll start you off to help you with your user acquisition strategy earlier by working with influencers and others that are building content on behalf of your franchise.
Yeah. So it's being clear about what you want to do, figure out your strategy, and then think through how you're going to talk to your audience early, how you're going to keep them engaged throughout the experience, and then use and find ways then to have people outside of your network start talking about your game.
Do you support micropayments, or is it a premium game?
It's going to be a premium game.
Got it, yeah. Yeah, your communication strategy, early and consistent, and all the things that Nathalie talked about is going to be critical in that type of a scenario, because you can't take pre-orders for virtual goods.
Thank you.
So could you give us some examples of analytics you have collected in the past and how people have used this data to make decisions?
So on the analytics side, it could be anything from payment methods. It could be anything from currencies, which are driving the fastest depending on your territory. It could be anything from local pricing. So have they priced their product appropriately for the different geographies they're in? There's a lot of different KPIs and metrics and ways that you can look at the data. Those are some of the obvious ones. Usually the biggest issue that people have is on setting pricing, what countries, what currency, what are the top payment methods, and so being able to analyze that and optimize that for your different geographies is probably the most important thing that's used for our data.
The other things that our data can provide is which influencers are working,
Yeah.
which aren't. Where are they coming from? Which platforms make the most sense? Are they better suited to sell on Facebook or other platforms? We're able to provide you analytics about how long people are in the game. There's lots of different
Fraud rates.
How
do you optimize your parameters around fraud so that you don't decline business that's actually good business? Things
Right.
like that. And so your account manager as well as your integration guys would start you off on an overall project plan and a product optimization plan. So it's key to work with them early and throughout your entire product life cycle.
Yeah, what we like to do is we like to sit down with each customer and really understand
Yeah.
what their problems are and kind of where the pain points are and come up with custom ways to solve it. So we don't have data that's kind of fits everybody. We kind of really look at your problem specifically and go into detail so that we can help you make an impact for your particular game and your particular issue.
The other thing on data that's not widely known or fully appreciated is that, so once you get beyond Steam, Xsolla has the second largest data set in the industry from worldwide. And a lot of that's based on 13 years of historical data. So while we don't disclose competitive information, we can go into the hood and look at your game genre, your game type, your distribution that you currently have, the languages you're in, look at the trends of the entire data set and come back to you with recommendations. And that's, I'll leave it at that. Super powerful consultation you can get.
That's very good, thank you.
Simple question. How much does all this cost?
We're going to pay you for asking that question.
So,
we love you.
So the good news is that it's a really simple, flat, easy rate of 5%. And that's based off of your revenues. So we do not make money until you make money.
Which is different than other platforms. So if you go through all the other distribution platforms, they have different pricing. So we're the lowest in the market, or one of the lowest in the market.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So before we part ways, I really want to encourage you to come chat with David or I after this, or book a meeting with one of our expert team members. Either you'll find some people right outside the door, or you can come to us and visit us at our booth in the South Hall, which is number 260.
Yep.
Remember, we only charge that super low flat fee of 5%. And we don't make money really until you make money. So it's in our best interest to take a consultative approach with you and really help you come up with a custom solution for you. So that's it. That's all we have today. I think that's our thank you slide.
Great. Thank you.
Have a good one and good luck at GDC.